gathered here today. It's Sunday, March 22nd, I believe, 2015, after our Seek and Cure benefit. We're just having a little bit of an informal conversation here about the events of the weekend and cannabis oil in general and cannabis education. With me at the table here, we've got a pretty good mix of people. We've got a variety of patients and caregivers alike. To my right here, we've got Corey Yellen. Next to her, we've got Sue and Pat Doty. Next to them, we've got Dr. Melamed, of course. Lindsey Bunn Rogers down at the end there. My partner and good friend Jen Cook at the very end there. Nicole Comley, I believe it is,
Yes.
right over here from Ohio. And Amanda. And Amanda. Pardon me.
And Amanda, you're from where?
So we're just gonna have some normal conversation like we would any other day, folks. You know, nothing too technical or too formal. But so we're gonna start right here with our favorite little lady that traveled so far to be here with us, and let's just give them a little bit of information about who you are and what your story is, Corey, and we'll see where the conversation leads us from there. How's that sound?
Okay, well, I'm Corey, and I'm from Victoria, British Columbia, as some of you know. In July of 2011, I was diagnosed with anal canal cancer. I'm told I had 2 to 4 months to live, 6 on the outside if I didn't have radiation, which I didn't do. Started on cannabis oil. Was in a lot of pain, not from cancer, but from post-anatomy syndrome, and used to take a crap load of pills. And within 2 weeks, I was down to half the Tylenol 3, so that was the first clue to me that something was working, and I was sleeping for the first time in years and years and years and years and years. I was actually getting a decent night's sleep. I didn't go back to the doctor for the longest time because I didn't get up to that gram a day, that's the goal, right? And so in my mind, I knew that I still had cancer. So, you know, people say to me, well, how long did it take for you to cure your cancer? And really, I think it probably only took a couple of months. But I just didn't want any more bad news, right? So I wasn't going anywhere near a doctor's office. So finally, it was like, take a deep breath and go to the doctor. And that was a year later. And I think maybe I got up to between half a gram and 3/4 gram, probably closer to half a gram a day. Was as high as I got.
Were you just ingesting orally, or were you just
No, I started doing suppositories halfway along. Once I found out about citicoline, because I'm one of those in the 10% that do get high with suppositories.
Yeah.
Like I went from freaking out one night going, oh my God, help me, like just absolutely petrified, freaking, to the next night rolling all over the bed laughing my head off for half an hour saying, I don't even know why I'm laughing. That's when I kicked citicoline into the mix. So citicoline totally stopped that paranoia and anxiety, which is why as a teen and in my early 20s that I stopped smoking dope, because every time I got stoned I got so freaking paranoid, and that was not fun. Now, had I known about citicoline, I could be like Canada's biggest pothead.
Nice.
But yeah, so when I went back after that year, I went to the doctor. He was blown away. He checked me 3 times. He couldn't believe it. He said, there's absolutely no sign. And then he said, but you know, let's do a biopsy, a couple of biopsies to make sure. Excuse me. So I was sure that there were still some cells, okay? Because I think I didn't want to set myself up for that disappointment, right? And I'm like, okay, this is encouraging. And even if it just stays like this for the rest of the time and I hold it at bay, even that's good. And when the biopsy results came back, there wasn't even, not only was there no signs of cancer, there was no signs of any dysplasia whatsoever. And my physician said, if I didn't know, in fact, the specialist wrote this to my GP, had I not known that she had had cancer, previous cancer, I would have said that the tissue looked completely normal. And I've been cancer-free since, and I just got the A-OK that I'm cancer-free in November again.
Nice.
So I guess it's almost 3 years now.
Are you still taking oil as maintenance?
Yeah. Yeah, I take about, so I'm not very good with the milligram crap. And I always say to people, talk to me in grains of rice. So in grains of rice, I take between 2 and 3 grains of rice a night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things about cannabis oil in reference to dosage, it's a very common question. and it's something that I want to clarify a little bit for people. You know, we're very accustomed to having a bottle of Tylenol or getting a prescription from the doctor and having it dosed right out for us in these convenient little pills that are 250 milligrams each.
As
We
though
take
that
them-
meant something.
Right, you know,
Yeah.
take one 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are or how much you weigh or if you're a male or a female or what, and so on and so forth. Well, when we start to look at medicine or treating any condition, I think the first thing we need to recognize is the individual. And it's not going to be the same dosage for everybody. So what I'm circling around here, my opinion and my view on dosage when it comes to cannabis oil, especially versus cancer, is when a patient has cancer, that disease is working, it has a momentum, a life of its own, so to speak, or an energy that's working against my momentum of life, or it's working against me to kill me. So once we introduce the cannabis oil, what I like to see is that momentum turn around and go the other way. So once we got that dose up to that point where we can recognize that momentum going from here to here, and I don't mean just a little bit, I want to teeter that
Full
son of a
swing.
bitch right over. Now we know and we found what the proper dose is for this patient now. And while we can certainly use things like a gram a day for a reference for many people and so on, some people never get there and they're just fine. And that's just indicative of the fact that this is an individual treatment and everybody
It's different.
everybody has a different situation
Well, this
with
is
it.
often what I say to people, you know, don't get hung up on that gram a day. Like, that's just a guideline. It's not
Exactly.
written in stone, you know. And when I'm talking to people who have, like, MS or Crohn's or whatever, I say to them, you'll instinctively know when you've got to your level, to your dose, right? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And yes, always, they do. In the end, they do. And I mean, it's not something that I can articulate very well, but you just know. It's you know when you're
Well,
there.
and I think it's about being in tune with your body,
Yeah.
you know, and understanding if you're healthy or if you're not. And sometimes when we're sick, especially when we're confronted with a heavy-duty diagnosis and you involve all the emotions that are involved with that, sometimes it's hard to be honest with ourselves about, do I really feel good today? Do I really feel sick today? And everything in between, you know. That might not make a lot of sense, and it's hard to articulate it, you know, that. But those of us that are in tune with our body, you know, you generally know if you're getting better or you're getting worse. You know, that momentum that I spoke of. So we like to see that momentum turn around. Another thing I want to talk about a little bit is that acetylcholine that you mentioned. You know, we've spoke about this many times before. The acetylcholine helping people negate some of that high effect or negative high effect that a lot of people feel, especially in the early stages of taking the oil. But we've also since then. Have reason to believe that this might have some effect on or be affecting different cancers in different ways, from what I understand. Would you like to clarify a little bit of that for us there, Bob?
Well, I can't give, you see, the whole thing with cannabis and the whole thing really with life is that it's very hard to give precise, pinpoint, linear, straight definitions, like, you know, take this amount of aspirin or whatever. That's not the way we work, and that's why the whole medical establishment, as you alluded to basically, you know, take this magic pill for this amount of time, and we don't care who you are, what weight. That's just lunacy, you know, but that's the way everything is working. And the cannabinoid system itself is so complicated that I don't think we can, again, pinpoint things as a general, you know, this is work for everyone. That's not the way it is, and I completely agree with what you're saying. You have to find what your dose is, find what feels good for you. But in general, from my observations, more is frequently better. You know, you get up to where you're comfortable, and you work from there. Now, I don't know if I answered your question, because
Well, I was, you addressed the first part of the conversation, but I was
the
wanting the acetylcholine,
yes.
I guess.
So the acetylcholine is a very interesting phenomenon, really. It's a natural compound that we all make. And the reason it works is because when you take, this is my assumption based on the literature putting pieces together, so I could be wrong, but I think I'm right, okay? What happens is when you take THC, it decreases your acetylcholine level. Now we know that a little bit of pot makes you feel good. We know that too much pot makes you feel very, very bad. And we know that the THC inhibits acetylcholine. Well, acetylcholine, not acetyl, but C-I-T-I choline, is a natural thing that your body produces, and it's one of the three possible pathways that lead to the synthesis of acetylcholine. So since THC reduces acetylcholine and high doses give you paranoia, and this eliminates the paranoia by elevating acetylcholine, we think we have a complete story there.
Sure.
And that's the nature of it. But having said that, the cannabinoid pathways, we can't think of it only in terms of CB1, CB2, GPR15, GPR118, vanilloid receptors. It's more than that. Because one of the fundamental truths from how I view life is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So what we're really looking at is how those receptors and how the compounds that bind to them and other compounds that stimulate and other compounds that inhibit the receptors, that whole swirl comes together in a way that's unique to each of us. And what is going to impact it and shift it in a way that's beneficial for us is not easy to define, but we can in general say that we need more cannabis. That's a truth. You know, that's been really verified by evolutionary history. You know, the fact that we keep using more and more cannabis as you go up the evolutionary scale and you compare, you know, a dog to a monkey to a human, you see there's a phenomena happening there, and it's more cannabinoid activity. Why? Because it's all about adaptability. So it's, again, the point here is flexibility, adaptability, that's the nature. And because the stuff is completely safe in terms of toxicity, you may have your mental freak out, but you can control that now with acetylcholine, and I haven't tried it, but supposedly smelling freshly ground pepper has an advantage to it.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
You know, so there are ways that the psychoactivity can be controlled. And acetylcholine is used to treat Alzheimer's and to help prevent it because of its memory reinforcing properties, which implies that acetylcholine is involved in that. So you're elevating it, and the cannabis is decreasing it, which is why we forget everything. But again, that's part of stress relief. So, you know, it's a very complicated picture. Cannabis has magical properties to plug into a very complicated system in many different ways, and it gives us the opportunity to find out whether or not we as an individual with our individual hallucinatory biochemistry can shift in a positive way. And in general, the answer is yes.
I think one of the very common questions, I guess I'm trying to think of some of the things that people ask me over and over and over again, so we can put it out there on film and maybe not have to answer it so many times. You know, and I'll be real simple about it. What can we do health-wise or food-wise to help our body or to keep our endocannabinoid system healthy, to keep it thriving, or to keep it going, however you want to word this. You know, how do we feed the endocannabinoid system other than the obvious with cannabis oil? You know, are the mangoes going to make a difference? Is this supplement going to make a difference? You know, are there any key things that we can do as a patient
The biggest, most obvious thing that we can do is provide the precursors for how our body makes pot, basically. You know, everybody should also be aware that the pot that our bodies make, our endocannabinoids, are not chemically the same as what the plant makes. But they work on the same receptors and modulate the same system, that collection of swirling psychedelic biochemistry that is what each of us is. So, you know, you have the ability to modify that in a very special way. And I don't know if that answers. But I guess what I wanted to say is we have to be careful and not try to be too linear in our thinking again. You know, the craze right now is CBD. Everybody wants CBD. Well, I asked the question among this group who've been very involved in treating people, has anybody had any experience where they've cured a cancer with a CBD-rich strain?
No, I've seen lots of people
Have
die.
you seen failures from that?
Yes.
Okay, so again, CBD is a very interesting part of this chemical, you know, palette that the plant has offered us to hopefully match the palette of what we have when necessary. And CBD does not work directly on the CB1 or the CB2 receptor. It does work on the vanilloid receptor, which are pain receptors. But again, things are not in isolation. Everything's talking to everything else. So, you know, why do we have pain receptors in our brain? Because that's where we perceive our pain. It's your pain receptors peripherally, the vanilloid receptors, that are sending signals to the brain. But, you know, what are these pain receptors doing? So they have other issues. There's other things going on with both the CB1 and the CB2. Why is the CB2 in the brain, you know? But CB2 I understand because of how it regulates metabolism.
Thanks again.
And CB2 turns on fat burning, which is why potheads are thinner, why potheads have lower levels of diabetes, why cannabis largely works for cancer, because it turns on that fat burning. And a lot of illnesses, in particular, aside from cancer, HIV and a variety of viruses like herpes and
Hepatitis.
Well, no, herpes virus. Hepatitis C is a more complicated situation, but it does have benefits, but also potential dangers, depending
the
on the individual.
HPV virus you're talking about, maybe?
Pardon me?
HPV virus?
Yes,
as well?
of course,
Yes.
papilloma, thank
Yeah.
you. Duh. Some of these viruses have evolved to do two things. One is that they require inflammation, because that's how they evolved. That's their environment. So when you try to fight infection with inflammation, and you're fighting things that like inflammation, it doesn't work. And that's been the problem with HIV. They at one point tried to use pro-inflammatory vaginal douches to try and minimize infection. Well, it accelerated infection because you gave the virus the environment that it likes. What it does not like and cannot tolerate is when your system in general has shifted significantly towards a fat-burning mode. And some obvious trivia, the viruses that we're talking about, be it HIV or herpes or papilloma, those are all lipid-covered viruses. So if you're burning your coat, you can't wear your coat, right? It's kind of that simple.
Wow.
And so things that promote, like eating essential fatty acids, that's how your body makes pot. So when the doctor tells you take omega-3 fatty acids in your fish oils, what they're telling you is increase your cannabinoid level. But they don't know it because they don't know about the endocannabinoid system. We know much more than they do. And sadly, they're not very interested in learning from my experience. When you try to show a physician a peer-reviewed scientific paper that addresses why vincristine causes neuropathy and how cannabis can prevent that, and you're dealing with taking a child away from a parent because they're using cannabis instead of the toxic drugs for leukemia, this is insanity that we're dealing with right now, total insanity. And we've got to change that, and that's why we're spreading the word.
Insanity,
We're spreading the knowledge.
I'm glad that you brought it up. Leukemia is one of the things that we've had 100% success rate with, not partial, 100%. Every single leukemia patient that's come to us for help and has taken the oil and followed the directions.
This is adults as well as children?
Adults as well as children.
Is this chronic as well as acute?
Every kind that comes across the board so far,
Okay.
It just seems to be that simple. You give them some oil, the leukemia goes away. They go off the oil and it comes right back. You use CBD, that doesn't work. And so on and so forth.
That's my experience too.
And something that's so prevalent. The leukemia is not uncommon. Everybody knows somebody that has a family member with leukemia.
Well, and the tragedy, because potentially because cannabis is able to cure it easily, other things also work. Maybe it's the accessibility because of the blood cancer. As soon as you take in the medicines, it's got ready access.
That's the way I view it. It seems because it is a blood cancer, the blood, that's why it seems to react the fastest. Or that's my opinion, I guess.
But the problem comes from that is that the doctors have a 90-95% successful cure rate for childhood leukemia. The
Right.
problem is they're all going to get cancer in 20 years.
Right.
5 years, most of them come up with brain tumor. I shouldn't say that. In more than one case, we've seen where childhood leukemia patients that survived, as they put it, ended up with a brain tumor, and that was where we came in. They didn't, we didn't meet them until the brain tumor time.
And was that a successful brain tumor?
No.
Yeah, the brain tumors are nasty. For a lot of reasons.
I disagree somewhat. Early on, we had a lot of success with brain tumors. But the non-cancerous brain tumors seem to be the real stubborn ones. Now, cancerous brain tumor, we've had a lot of success with, and I'm not going to claim anywhere near 100%, but I would go as far as 3 out of 4.
So you're talking about gliomas now?
I've got a glioblastoma patient right now that was given a death sentence 3.5 years ago. I think he just celebrated his second year. 100% alive, we'll just put it that way.
Is the tumor still there?
Him, in that case, the tumor has not grown since the day he started taking the oil. It also has not reduced. I've got 2 other patients that cleared it, and one of them very, very fast. Within 6-7 weeks, they had a 70% reduction, and that was just recently. And this is glioblastoma. I mean, this is the most aggressive form of brain cancer known to man. You get diagnosed with that, and they tell you go home and die.
Yeah,
And
but
that's-
unfortunately, cannabis doesn't always work, and it often will work for a while, but not in the long run. I think part of the issue, and you've actually touched on it here, is that some clear and some don't.
Yeah.
And what might very well be the case is that tumor that's there is all dead. And it's just too much of a mass for the body to remove it, so they just wrap it up and leave it. And we've seen that with Janet in particular. Has seen that with I know a guy who had astrocytoma in his armpit there, and had surgeries and different things, but at different times. And that seems to be a situation that if the body can expel the tumor, and we see that Janet's seen it with breast cancers, thyroid cancers. Cancers, like your body likes to expel it and get rid of it. Your skin cancers fall off, Kaposi's falls off. All of the people crap out their colon cancers and their stomach cancers. So, if you have a surface, an epithelial cell, which is basically what your lining is from one end to the other, as well as here, and thyroid cancers. I don't remember if that's a carcinoma or I don't remember this tissue origin, but in general, these epithelial cell type cancers will be expelled, it seems, from what we've been seeing. Whereas if you can't expel, what are you going to do in the brain,
Sure.
You can either get rid of it, dissolve it, remove the debris, which is inflammatory and it's an issue in itself, or you can potentially wrap it up and let it go to sleep for the rest of your life, or it can kill you.
Only 3 ways out, right?
Yeah.
That sounds familiar. Let's talk about thyroid a little bit. I think we've had an explosion of young people these days that are coming with thyroid conditions, and I think it's one of these deals that's directly related to our environment. There's Janet. Come on and have a seat, lady. And, it's pretty disheartening to see. She's been fighting thyroid cancer since she was, I don't even know, last 5 or 6 years anyway. Lindsay, you've had a thyroid condition for how many years? It's non-cancerous. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your condition and your treatment, your experience with your let's see where that leads us. While we're at it, we'll welcome Janet and George Sweeney to the table. Hello. We're just having an informal conversation, talking about last night stuff and things. So.
But the things we said about you guys before.
Gotta wait till it comes out on film. Well, about 4 years ago, I went in for a routine checkup, and it was, as soon as my doctor walked in, she just looked at me and said, "Oh wow, you don't look great. Like, your throat's never looked like that to me before. Is anything going on?" And I said no, I thought I was feeling okay, and she did some blood work and found out she wanted to send me to a specialist to have some work done on my thyroid. And it was discovered at the same time that I was pregnant. And they were really concerned right off the bat because I had miscarried a baby the year before, really late into my pregnancy. And nobody knew why or what happened or had any, reason why that would have happened. And I was.
Were you using cannabis, when you had the miscarriage?
Very lightly. Actually, with that pregnancy, I was like really sick for some reason, like super sick. And even the smell of it, because I am a daily user. So, but that time it was different. With that pregnancy, it really was different. Like I couldn't be around people who were breaking it up or smoking it, or it made me nauseous.
She passed on smoking and that's
with that pregnancy, and I had smoked cigarettes at the time too, but I quit. Like as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I quit smoking cigarettes, and really just the smell of it being so sick, I wasn't around really pot or anything for that pregnancy. So it was really strange to me. Like, why did I do everything perfect with this one and, lose it? Because with my first two, I always used cannabis to like keep with not feel sick, and I would just recreationally use it, I guess, in a medicinal purpose to keep me from, you know, morning sickness. And I probably didn't even know it was medically at the time, but so with that pregnancy, I'm like, how did I go from doing everything right to, you know, everything going so wrong? So when I got pregnant this time and they told me the thyroid, I put 2 and 2 together that, okay, so I had thyroid issues going on and just they were undiagnosed at the time. Being untreated, that's could be a possible side effect is stillborn or late-term miscarriage. So I was really nervous with that time and did everything by the book, and they put me on some thyroid medicine and discovered that some nodules there, but there was
Were you
like
hyperactive or hypoactive?
hyperactive. And there was some concern with the nodules because there was some blood flow going to them, and they wanted to biopsy them, but for whatever reason, they had me at high risk in the pregnancy, and said we had to wait till baby was born, and then we would do everything from there. But during the pregnancy, I stayed super sick. I stayed on the medicine that they gave me, and I just never could get better. I never felt right. I just lived that pregnancy out on the couch, and had the baby, tried to get everything. They wanted me to go right in for emergency surgery, but I wanted to wait and see if we could do some like diet, natural supplements, anything, cannabis oil. And so I just really wanted to wait, and I knew that as soon as I had the baby, I was gonna get on full treatment. So I did that on my own, but not having access to the cannabis oil, just trying to do the diet and supplements and some Chinese herbs and some, you know, just stuff from the vitamin store and off the internet and whatever. It got out of hand on me. And so I knew that I needed cannabis oil, but I didn't have access to it like that. So I had super small amounts that I had access to. But I could tell that I felt better. When I did take it, I felt a lot better. And I knew that I would be able to wean myself off that medicine if I could feel like that, you know, so I just put it out there and got me a little bit of cannabis oil off the internet. Got a couple grams, was just doing like the grain of rice. I didn't have no set dose. I don't know what kind of oil it was or if it was high THC, CBD. I didn't know. I just started taking what I could, and it was a little expensive, so I was taking super small doses, but it helped me. Even at the small doses, it helped me. And it started shrinking, and the nodules and everything so much. So I had to put a video out there because I was taking pictures, and just from the pictures and 3 grams, people did not believe that, wow, that much difference has happened in, you know, 1 week or whatever. So I made the video, and Pete seen my update and seen that I was trying to, I had this huge mass. Now it was just getting out of control. I was keeping it at bay with very small amounts, but he contacted me and said, if you want to kick that thing's ass, then I'll help you, but you need to come here and come to Michigan and get legal, and I'll help you. So I did that. That's what I did. I did what I had to do, and I became a Michigan patient, and really within, I think, the week, I was at his house legal and
Lindsay was one of
sitting
the
at
ones
his
that I
table.
use over and over and over again. People try telling me about how much they can't do or they won't do to get the oil. Lindsay came to Michigan, became a resident, and was a legal patient all in the same day, within a few hours of crossing the border. It was at my house.
At that point, I knew that a couple grains of rice wasn't going to cut it.
When there's a will, there's a way, is the point.
And-
Yeah, it's your life, fool.
Right, it got to the point where it was like choking me in my sleep and stuff, and so at that point, I considered it surgery. And I just told my husband, I'm like, okay, well, something's got to give, because I can't do this no more. It was affecting like me eating, drinking. I would just be sitting here trying to talk to you, and I would be choking on like my own saliva or something, because it was just so uncomfortable. And I woke up the one morning and said, okay, well, something's got to give, and I guess I'll contact the doctor. We've been without health insurance too, so that's been a real struggle. So I've been trying to do everything really without a doctor's assistance, and getting blood work when I can, and going back and seeing him. Well, with the medication and everything, he had stocked me up with a 9-month supply when I told him, you know, I don't have insurance and I'm going to see what I could do, but I'm not going to be back for a little while. And he stocked me up with 9 months of the medicine. But when I walked out of there, I've never used any more of the medicine. When Pete said come down and get on the cannabis oil, I pretty much went straight there. I've never took the medicine, you know, the thyroid medicine again. And I mean, it hasn't been a walk in the park since the day one, but he put me on super high doses to get rid of that largest mass. And it just started shrinking and going away, and I did what I had to do.
What doses
and
were you on?
He started me off at about 1 gram a day.
And you just jumped into the gram a day?
I jumped right in there. I mean,
Without citicoline?
without
Oh, you
citicoline.
had some experiences.
And he got,
Cakewalk in the park.
actually got
Yes.
up to 2 grams a day. Really, he kept me on 2 grams a day. We did it, I think, 30 or 45 days you had me on 2 grams.
Well, and, you know, she was one of the early ones. We didn't know how well this
He
stuff
said, how much
was
can
or
you
how
take?
or
And I
what,
said,
man.
I'll take
The
what I
throat was
can.
huge.
And-
She told me she couldn't breathe. I said, you better take a lot of oil. I mean, yeah.
I didn't know about even the suppositories at that time, so it was all oral, you know, for me, and no citicoline, and.
Now, how many people have used suppositories? Because
I've never had.
I've heard, I mean, people keep saying that you don't get as high, but people I know used to use them to get stoned.
Yeah, that's what's going on with my
What am I missing
father-in-law.
here?
He's taking a rectal suppository and he's having 8-9 hour buzzes.
Yeah, that's what
I
you're supposed
actually, I
to do.
just
So why
texted her,
are
I'm
people
like,
saying you don't?
Peppercorn.
I'm under the impression that most people that do the suppositories don't get high.
that's
And now
my
just
experience.
recently,
It makes no
maybe even
sense
at
to
this
me.
table, somebody said that there's the 10% of the people that do it rectally get high. I have no idea about it.
I think it might be a
But that's
placebo
something that's worth
type effect.
You
clarifying.
think what?
It might be a placebo type effect. They don't think they're gonna get high, so they don't.
Well, I don't know,
I don't
'cause,
know.
I mean, I've got like tons of people that are doing suppositories, and even before I knew about this whole suppository thing and not getting high, I had women doing vaginal suppositories. And I remember the first one telling me, she had the same cancer as I had. I said, no, she was doing evil. And she's like, I don't get high. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't get high? And she's like, I do the oil, and I can't function. I can't look after my kids, and I do the suppositories, and I'm fine. And I'm just like, are you serious? Like, really?
Yeah.
So how long you been on the oil, Lindy?
I've been on about 3 years.
Right.
What
In May, I haven't been back to the doctor. It's been almost a year. I had all perfect blood work done last May. I went in and got all my panels and everything, all the blood work. And when he came back in the room, he said, okay, well, he said, actually, you're within a 5% over what I would like, but he said 5% fluctuates, and I'm gonna consider that perfect. So he said, you're walking out of here with perfect blood work. So I said, if I came to you as a patient today, because he had a lot of problems with me trying to do anything natural, and he looked right at me and said, there's nothing natural gonna help your thyroid. It will never function again. We cannot remove those masses without cutting you open and taking your thyroid out and keeping you on this medicine for the rest of your life. And they told me, suck it up, because get used to this medicine, because this is what you need to survive. And honestly, I was so sick, I could not function, that I could not live the rest of my life like that. That's why I came to Michigan. That's why I left. My husband was against it. He did not want me leaving, and coming and meeting this strange man on the internet was not going to help me for free, because, and just that's the way he thinks, and that's most people think that way.
Most people, they don't know
And-
the cannabis world.
Right, and he said, and he really fought me on it, and I had to put my foot down and say
My
what was
life.
important to me, and it was my life, and I knew that I couldn't, just, what kind of life would I live like that on the couch, and, being a mom and having 3 small kids, and no way, I wasn't gonna do it, so I sucked it up and ran for the cure, and I knew before, and I had that, I think that's where I had the confidence that I give other people, I give them a little slack, because I have been researching this for so long, and, it's like been, oh, that's why I've been looking into this for 4 years already. I didn't know why I was so involved, but when the time came that I needed help, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and there was no doctor or no family member or anybody that could convince me that I needed to go remove this organ that's vital, for life. And I remember looking at my husband and saying, well, what if some crazy world catastrophe happens and we happen to survive? And I can't fucking reach the thyroid medicine now. What? I thought about that. What if something happens, and now you telling me that I need this medicine once you take my thyroid out, that I have to have this or I'm dead meat. So what if something happens, to where I just cannot, how do we get this thyroid medicine? Can I make it? Give me the recipe. Let me see if no, it don't work like that. Somebody else is going to be in control.
Cut out the pig thyroid and eat it.
Well, yeah, no thank you, I know how to make cannabis oil. I know, where the plant comes from. I'd much rather take my chances and try the safest thing first, and I just knew that it was gonna work, and it did, so.
So in the last couple of years, I know you, just like a lot of other patients, you find yourself, some days you got a lot of oil and some days you don't. You know, and I know you're one of the patients that's worked very hard to stretch things out and stuff. And I guess what I really want to get to is what happens when you run out of oil.
Well, when you run out of oil, it's not good, but it's not a death sentence necessarily, because everybody can find pot, and that's what I try to tell people, and I live by that too. I mean, everybody can go find a bag of weed. I don't care if you smoke pot or not. There's somebody in your family, there's somebody in your circle, there's somebody that if you are sick and you reach out and say, hey, I need a bag of cannabis, score me the best bag that you can bring it home, and with a jar of coconut oil or a jar of olive oil, you can have you an infusion and have some medicine by that night. It's not, and then keep aiming for the next best thing, and honestly, that's just what I did. When I don't have anything else, then we'll make it from whatever we can. And
Well, I think what you just said is very important. You know, while we can go on and on for hours about things like THC or CBD or this strain versus that strain or whatever, when it gets down to it and somebody's in the position of being diagnosed or deciding to use cannabis as a medicine, the sheer logistics are real simple. You get the best fucking pot you can, you make the best damn oil you can,
Right.
and you take
so
it.
many people, so many
You know,
people
how many
have not
people-
taken the oil because it's not lab tested, and I just feel like shaking them and saying,
There
"Are
you
you
go.
kidding me? I've never smoked a joint that was lab tested. I'm sorry, but I haven't. I've been a recreational smoker since I was 16 years old. Looking back now, I know that I was self-medicating, and I am a medical patient, and I do use cannabis every day to function at my best, and I don't drink alcohol, I just don't, and I don't enjoy it, but every day I use cannabis, and I don't know, looking back now, I don't know, I've always functioned my best on that way, and I've never been afraid of it, and I just know that it's the safest way, and if you can try it first, you know, then you need to try it first. You can't be afraid of it because it didn't come from Macy's, you know, you can't be afraid of it because it's the best thing or whatever, because in my eyes, there is no bad pot. If it's moldy and you can obviously see bugs in it, then that's not pot, that's not what I'm talking about, you know what I mean? But honestly, I've never went and got a bag of pot to consume that I've looked at, and it's poison.
Well, you know,
and
whether
I
you use
got sick the
marijuana or
next
not,
day,
you
and-
know if a piece of fruit is bad, whether you're familiar
Right.
with that particular
Right.
type of fruit or not, you know.
You mean
I
you
go,
don't have your peaches analyzed?
But if somebody
afraid to
told
analyze my
me,
peaches.
honestly, if somebody told me, look, I've got this pot here, it looks like a brick pressed from Mexico, it's seedy, it's stemmy, I don't know what to do with it, but my dad's dying, what should I do? I'm gonna say, go
Yeah,
milk
man,
that
absolutely.
shit, go infuse it. You
Damn
know what?
straight.
It might not be the best stuff. He's probably gonna need better, but from that bag, that starts you on your journey.
Gets you started.
And you
Well,
know
and we've
that
we've
you keep
seen
building up
many,
and
many lives
taking
saved
better.
over the years with that Mexican brickweed, as you
Yep.
put it.
Mhm.
Or, you know, and just by the nature of a concentrate, you know, we're concentrating this down to do the good stuff. To
Right.
be,
Well, but that's the danger.
oversimplified about it.
Because if you have shitty weed with contaminants, you're concentrating those.
Right, and that's
potentially,
exactly
you know?
where I was headed with that, because, you know, when you've got the mold and the mildew in there, you can concentrate that as well. But that's where the common sense come in. Is it a good peach or is it a bad
Right.
peach? Does
Yeah.
it smell like mildew or not? You know, it's
Right.
not very hard to figure out, you know?
Right,
Some
And
people-
right.
There you go. Well, and
And I would always suggest
Darwin
too,
in
I try to
action.
tell people that you're safer off to go buy a bag of cannabis and get you a jar of coconut oil than you are to try to buy a tube of oil off the internet from somebody that you don't know, you've never met. And they might have the best intentions at heart, but if they're doing it totally wrong, and if they're cutting corners, and if they're, I mean, you just don't know. So why take that risk when you know that you can go buy a bag of pot, you can look at it, you can see, I mean, and chances are, if you're sick and you reach out and you've never smoked, like you said, you know, oregano, yeah, there are people that's going to be scammed. But if I come to you as, you know, you're my uncle and you need help, and you reach out to the family, and you might not have never smoked before,
Yep.
but your daughter or your cousin,
Somebody.
or they're going to reach out to you. They're not going to give you oregano. You can trust your family and your friends, and it is a whole nother community.
Well, at some point, we
inside the
just got to
cannabis
apply some
community.
common.
If nothing else, find a college.
Right,
Some
and I
people are
try to
too
tell them that
stupid.
too, you know, like, I know everybody can't grow their own. I'm sitting in Ohio, I have, my husband is cut, you know, he's cut, laced, and do it by the book, and if it's not, that's not how it should be done, and I know that everybody just can't go plant some seeds out in their garden like we should be able to, but there's summertime comes around, don't tell, if you're sick, and I mean, I just know that even within my own family, if you're sick and you reach out to your family and say, can I borrow a 3x3 garden space in your backyard, or, you know, who's got a privacy fence, who's got a greenhouse, who's got a garden you can use, who has a cornfield, use your imagination, but it's a plant, it's dropped some seeds, and yeah, you can't wait, sick patients cannot wait 6 months to grow a plant. But you know what, if you've took that first tube of oil and you're feeling better and you're putting your trust into strangers, then you need to make that next step. And you need to, if you can't drop your seeds and plant your own and start your own garden, like most of us can't, then you need to at least find somebody in your cannabis community who is doing that.
There should be a
reaching
line
out.
about that, or a quote, or
There might
plant
be.
a seed, grow.
I mean, that is the ultimate goal, but then I talk to people every day, and they're in apartment buildings, and they're in, you know,
Everybody
states
has
that
closets.
just-
Well, everybody's got an excuse, but the bottom line is everywhere there's people, there's marijuana, and there's a reason for
Exactly.
that.
I'm amazed the number of people that don't take any accountability for their own health.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
They want
Right.
you to help them, but it's like,
Right.
Help me, I won't help myself.
no.
We should look at the other side of this as well, though, because societies form and have governments ideally to help maintain a healthy, good society. And sadly, that's not the case.
Right.
That the cannabis reality that we're aware of is proof, unambiguous proof in my mind, that our governments and our law enforcement are completely incompetent, immoral, and they are killing people around the world daily by this cannabis prohibition, and they're going against the science, they're going against the citizens, they're going against history. How do we let them get away with that?
Well, the government has 15 patents on cannabis right now. They have 15 patents. What does that tell you? If they're patenting
All
it,
about the money.
Well, you know,
it's supposed to be
again,
patented for the people of the United States.
but those are
Why don't I have it?
individuals who are
Right.
patenting it within the NIH or within the government. It's not like there's the government does
Well,
it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
people who are doing it because that's their, you know, they do the research, and we have
But
this
the
whole.
point is, the patent is owned by the United States government.
Yeah, depending on how the funding occurred. Yeah.
Right. So to me, that means they know it's good.
No, they don't know it's good.
Yes, they do.
They know there's a patent that they can maybe make money off of. They can't get it through
Either
their
way,
heads.
it's immoral for them to say it's good on one side and then not let me have it.
Well, that's the whole purpose of what I was saying.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a bunch of corrupt morons, and they don't care that they're killing us. You know, as
I
long
think
as
that's
they
the
have
point.
their cushy pensions, and as long as they can bring their kids to the fanciest doctors in their state of ignorance, not knowing that, you know, we'll give them chemo instead of cannabis. Well, that's natural selection. We're going to get rid of these people that are screwing us now. We're going to get rid of the blips.
So we gotta
because
weigh them out?
evolution has continuously selected for more cannabinoids. It's not going to stop. It's going to happen, and these attitudes and this primitive, ego-oriented, macho-oriented, alcoholic crap that runs the world has got to end, or we're not going to be here. It's that simple.
Very true.
We can't pollute ourselves and populate ourselves and breed ourselves into oblivion and expect otherwise.
Well, and, you know, what's taking place is nothing short of murder, of genocide.
It is.
You know, and these are words that shouldn't be used lightly, and they're not being used
They're
lightly.
not.
You know, what's taking place, just with the example of leukemia that we mentioned earlier. You know, here we got a rampant disease within our society that's very easily treatable. The only thing stopping us from treating it effectively is the truth.
The people who are supposed to be
The
protecting
egos,
us.
The egos that stand in between that. And
My
it's-
kids
it's-
came home with the pastas for Penny for leukemia just on Friday.
Oh,
My
I
husband
hate
looked
that.
at me and I said, we work for the Cash Card Project. We do all the volunteer work that we need to for the cancer community. So when he said, but Mom, my teacher said if each one of us brings in $2 a day, we'll get the pizza party. I
Oh,
said, but Johnny, Leukemia is not about a pizza party. So tell your teacher that you volunteer for the Cash Card Project. And we do all of our volunteer work directly with patients. And he just smiled because he enjoys work, you know, doing artwork. And they don't know the gist of what they're doing yet, but they know that they're volunteering for, you know, in the cancer community and sick kids. And it's cute, but I mean, they do come home. It's sad that the schools and everybody is down to teaching our kids that it's all about raising money. And if you can, for a cure, you know, and for a cure, and it's like, well, you need to tell them that the cure is
plant the
out
seed.
there, right? You know, the cure is definitely out there, but it's going to be in the more natural route and not for money for CEOs of big companies that want cancer research. You know, the cancer research, tell them to research the Cash Card Project, and we'll send them some artwork. You know.
There you go.
So that's all the cancer research, you know,
Don't need
that
any more
the kids
pink
need to be
ribbons.
going through.
My son just had me send him the picture of Ted the Head, the guy with the, you know, squamous cell that was eaten down to his skull so he could show his friends because they don't believe that marijuana can cure cancer.
Perfect.
So I had to text it to him yesterday so he could like, look at this one. I'll pass it around in case any of you haven't seen this picture.
My daughter Emma's a straight A student, has been her whole life. The only paper she ever got an E on was one that she had written about marijuana last year, so.
Really?
The teacher told her it was a matter of opinion and she didn't do any research.
Oh my gosh.
Needless to say, we wear that one with honor. We put it right on the fridge.
And that was, the cannabis did that. It ate the cancer down to the bone.
And I know Emma learned a very valuable lesson in that day because of what the teachers did. That showed her that the teachers are ignorant, as a lot of public are. And here's a 12, 13-year-old girl that's so much
My
smarter
sons had the
than them.
hardest time when they took their DARE classes. Like, no, please don't, guys.
Well, that's been a discussion with my husband. I don't even want my children to participate.
Yeah,
They
that's
still do
next
there?
Yeah,
Well,
that's next
Yeah.
year for our kids going
It's
into
fair,
the grade.
it's
Oh,
a
I know.
changed program,
And my
but
kids know about it.
yeah,
They
with
know
us being in
some of
Ohio,
that
they
stuff.
still
They do.
know
Get
marijuana right in
medicine.
there.
They'll kill them an infection
My
from the
kids have
hospital.
actually been
He was such a
educated
great
fairly
guy, too.
decently now that we moved to Vermont as opposed to Colorado
Oh,
and
really?
Springs, where the teachers say, yeah, there's
It shows
medical
you how bad
value, but
cancer
there's
can get.
danger, blah, 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 blah. So they,
remember
at
that.
least,
What happens
it wasn't the total
Right.
insanity. It was pretty, almost a
still
little
going.
balanced, even though we know there is no
We
balance.
lost contact
Right.
with him, but he's still
We
going.
know it's all good.
The city choline, Corey, how much did you start off at? You did do that?
Yep.
How
I
long?
can't blow it up again.
I did
Anyway,
when I
that's
first
it.
started, I did 2 caps
skull.
before
skull.
every dose, about a half hour before every dose.
So is this?
And then I started getting brave and just did
He
1.
unfortunately died from a
And
hospital infection, not from
then I did none.
cannabis. He was
So the
open
one
like this for a
worked
year
too?
without
Yeah.
an infection.
It
But
really
what I
works well to
do,
just ramp
but
up
what
and
I
get
do
into
do,
it.
I still
Actually,
take
it was
citicoline, but what I do is I take it in the morning. Sometimes if I take too much oil, I'm feeling really grogged out in the morning. And if I take a citicoline in 10 or 15 minutes, I just kind of go bing. All right,
Just gotta wake
okay.
your brain back
You know?
up.
Yeah.
In a capsule form?
Yeah.
Nice.
Good, because I'm droggy right now. I'm back on the oil, and I've been doing
Yeah,
that.
the citicoline works like a charm
I've
to
actually
stab me
been coming
too.
down the
Yeah.
stairs like drunk feeling in the morning, but
Yeah.
I was off the oil for like 6 months,
Yeah.
so, and
It's kind of that little bit of a hangover almost. And
I'm
yeah,
definitely feeling, it's kicked my ass in the morning
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
And the
sometimes I'll
batch
be
might have
just
been
like-
different or
Do
whatever.
you find taking it a few hours before you go to bed versus right before you go to bed?
You wanna try some
helps
now?
with the hangover?
Which I've been trying to take a,
Lindsay, you wanna try some now?
what's that?
Citicoline?
Oh, sure.
Oh, you've never tried this?
I've never tried
I
that.
don't travel without it.
Well, man, if you took that gram,
Yeah, I've never tried, like, it's not a side effect that's bothered, you know, that I can't shake, it's.
Where
I
do you get
come
yours
down the
at,
stairs and
Janet?
grab
Oh,
my
yeah, it's
cup,
not-
you know, okay.
I usually go on eBay or
Yeah, I've never
Amazon.
used
Okay.
the
I actually buy it in
citicoline.
bulk now.
Right.
it's very
If you
interesting.
get the bulk powder, it
not.
costs you a few
And
more
I
bucks
sit
up
there
front.
wondering,
You
what
get
am I
Yeah,
so
when you
much
tap
more.
it up, yeah, you're looking like
Yeah.
twice.
One
the
bag
amount.
of the
It
stuff will
definitely
last you a
eliminates the
lifetime.
negative
Much
side,
like
does
does
it?
if you
Right.
get
Yeah, I was gonna
one
say, it
bag.
don't like my lifetime.
Well, my local
Right.
health food
Which my
store,
husband
my
does.
little
He
independent health food
totally-
store, not 2
Well,
blocks
you
away,
said take less.
and they carry
Right.
it. And
for,
She
you know,
she said
maybe-
sales
my-
of
my,
citicoline
son-in-law,
have skyrocketed.
Same
She's even
here.
sending it
Just
back east to
finally
people.
retired, and,
I sent them all
Isn't that
there.
crazy?
Yeah, go get some
He was
citicoline right in
such
that
an
corner
OCD.
store there. Yeah.
But he'll do 2 or 3 grams at a time.
See,
Well, that's
my-
something that we recognized early on in
mother-in-law
cannabis
cannot
camp and
take
long
it. She's
before.
never did the city code, no.
Yeah, it does help a lot.
The
It's
ability
very,
for
very,
marijuana
very
to bring
preventable.
people together.
And you
the
found
power
it
of
out
the plant.
because somebody took a 5-hour cold capsule, a 5-hour
No.
energy drink? That's how you found
No,
it?
no, I found it in that, so I was giving it to people till I could find it in bulk.
No, but
I read
you-
an article
Oh, okay.
that, where they were doing some work with addictions, and they were using that to stop, I think it was meth. And I was like, geez, I wonder, you know, the way they showed the mechanism, I was like, gee, I wonder if it'll work the opposite for us. So I tried it, and it worked like great. Just started telling
Yeah, it's
everybody
very
about it.
interesting.
Yeah, it's, you know what it is? I never really sleep good, so I'm always looking at weird stuff at night, you know? So that just comes, oh wow, that looks neat.
Well, and the 6-phosphoglycerolcholine works equally as well.
Yeah, we gotta put that out too.
Yeah, I've tried both of them.
What is it?
6-phosphoglycerol.
I just can't even say it. I just go simple.
6-phosphoglycerolcholine.
Cognizant.
I think they call it alpha GP.
Sue Doty.
Yes.
Let's talk to you, Sue Doty.
Yes.
I want to hear your story. I met Pat and Sue Doty. What's it been? Probably 2-3 years now?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with lymphoma 2000.
January 16th, 2012.
You're not sure?
No.
She forgets, you know.
2:42 a.m.
Yeah, no, I've had
11:15
too much
when I
pain, I
called the
don't
ambulance.
remember that. And I was told that if I didn't have chemotherapy, that I would die. And of course, when you're diagnosed like that, the doctors, you know, we get a report, and we're gonna start, and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it really, really quick. And the first thing I did is I sat there and looked at him and said, no, I don't wanna do chemotherapy. Well, it's pushing on your heart and your pancreas and your liver, and if you don't, you're gonna die. Well, I don't wanna die. So I did the 6 rounds of R-CHOP, 3 of them almost killed me. I was back in the hospital for days and days and days. You know, your blood count is 0. And the whole time, Pat, he's such a great husband, was looking on the internet for something, anything that would help me besides that stupid chemotherapy. You came across, you tell that part, you came across your cousin.
Well, back up a little bit, the very first day when she was diagnosed, an oncologist came into her hospital room and told us, this is what she's got, we're gonna give her R-CHOP. And I says, what's R-CHOP? And he takes out a little piece of paper, writes down R-C-H-O-P, and tells me what each one of those chemicals are. And I says, is there something else we can do, some other alternative besides this? And I did a little research on this doctor too, and he's of Indian descent, and his first study of in college was pharmacology, so this is right in his ballpark. He should know about this. And he told me, no, there's nothing else. Chemotherapy is what we can do. So he's either one of 2 things. He's either lying or he's ignorant.
Ignorant.
Or both.
Probably, mostly
But,
they're
but
ignorant.
there's no other alternative. He's one or the other. And this is the same doctor we talked to just a couple weeks ago about cannabis again.
And what does he say
And
now?
He says, I haven't seen any cases where it's really helped. He says, yeah, if she was under chemotherapy actively being treated right now, he says, then I could probably recommend it because I have some patients that for the combat side effects of chemotherapy. So, you know, like most everybody, they do know and they've heard about the side effect remedy, cannabis, but they don't know that it can replace chemotherapy, radiation,
You know,
surgery.
when I first started to voice support for cannabis and cancer, you can't imagine the shit that I got from the cannabis community as well as from the physicians, because I would, like patients out of time, I would show head to head the stuff. Now, how can you're looking at it, you know? What don't you get about looking at it, you know? This is real.
It's not hard. There's so much information out there. I could spend the rest of my
No,
life doing that, you know.
they do not. I have over 900 papers specifically on cannabis and cancer. And out of those 900, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 that showed in tissue culture, low-dose THC accelerating a particular cell line of breast cancer. Big deal. What about the other 900 papers that show cannabis kills cancer? Why? You know, the doctors don't read them. They're unaware of them. They give you this crap that we need more research. I've got 13,000 peer-reviewed articles on cannabis and its medicinal value for migraines, for cancer, for heart disease, for everything. And it all depends on how much you know for you to be able to interpret it correctly. And they don't know, and they can't interpret it, so they'll look at something where, you know, they did an animal study and they gave a CB1 specific synthetic chemical that only turns on the CB1 receptor, and they say, oh yeah, look, it's promoting liver fibrosis. And that's true. But how many of you are out there using CB1 specific agonists that don't do everything else that pot does? The only way you're getting that is if, again, at the fault of the government and the prohibition, if you go and you buy, you know, these synthetics that are sold, incense and blah, 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 all this crap that they sell that are using synthetic CB1 agonists to get you high, but not to do any of the other beneficial things that are not simply the product of CB1, which will promote fibrosis in your liver and your heart and a variety of other wrong things that are balanced when you use the plant that's also doing everything else that it does.
So anyway, after I had the R
Sorry about that interruption. It's a
Small interjection.
These doctors don't know what they're talking about.
No, they
You know,
don't.
that's the problem.
They don't give you
They
the
won't.
information.
They won't.
They already went to school, they ain't got time to learn anything new.
Right, they read it in the book.
Yeah. So after they about killed me, they ruined my immune system. I have like no immune system. I have neuropathy from the chemotherapy, brain fog from the chemotherapy, and I had an infection that they couldn't figure out what was exactly going on. And I also had tumors growing in my lungs that they guaranteed that they could treat that with some other kind of chemotherapy once they got big enough.
Don't you worry about
And they
it.
think that was
yeah.
Guaranteed it like they were gonna give you your lung back, or?
No, like,
Well, soon we'll be able to grow them though, maybe.
he
Yeah.
was
Lungs
really
should be
hoping
easier.
for a bigger boat, I think. You know, is what his real plan was. Well, Pat ended up finding out about some honey oil that he'd heard about that cured cancer, and found out about a party Uncle Pete was having Halloween weekend, and said, we're gonna go and we're gonna meet these people and find out about this honey oil, cannabis oil, RSO oil, whatever the hell this shit is, we're gonna find out about it. So we went up there and we met Uncle Pete, and he hooked me up with my first dose of oil that day, sent me home with enough for like the next week. We talked to him, said, hey, we got some product, but we want somebody to watch us make oil, because, you know, taking your first pound of marijuana and putting it in a bucket is scary. I'll be
Yep.
honest with you, yeah.
So's the 100th one.
Well, yeah. But yeah, by the end of the week, he had me hooked up with my first pound of marijuana and been on oil ever since, and progressively getting better. I'm still dealing with a lot of the side effects from the chemotherapy, and that may be just a very long time consuming thing.
And how long's it been now?
Uh,
Have you been on the oil?
almost 2.5 years. Yep.
And how long that one doctor give you?
Oh, well, he said he'd be able to give me more chemo in 3 years, and I would only live for 7 to 9 years. So.
I know that one guy came in and told you
Oh,
he had like months.
yeah.
Well, that was a mistake. When she was in the hospital, when we first brought her in, it was on a Monday. And the reason I brought her in is because she had been in pain for several months. We put a new double wide on her property and did a lot of landscaping. We were both sore that fall. We thought it was from all the work we'd done outside. I didn't know that she was taking as much over-the-counter pain medicine as she was. And she says to this day that she wasn't taking over the amount that's recommended. But she was taking so much of and almost everything over the counter besides Tylenol is NSAID. I never knew what NSAID was before that day. But it does say on TV that one of the side effects is stomach bleed. Well, that's what eventually happened from taking the pain medications for the lymphoma that she didn't know she had. She ended up with a stomach bleed. And to the point where she woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and she fell on the floor. I got her back up in bed, didn't know what was going on. I checked her blood pressure because she said her heart was really racing. And her blood pressure was quite low, but she does normally have a low blood pressure. But this time it was like 80/40, which was pretty low. She's usually maybe 100/60, and which is still low, but for her it's normal. Well, she got back in bed, we slept, got up in the morning, she still didn't feel good. We had a doctor's appointment a couple days later, but I said, no, we can't wait.
No, we had a doctor's appointment that afternoon.
I called and made an appointment. I called and said, something's going on. She can't stand up. She's losing consciousness. I need to bring her in. They said, well, bring her in at 1 o'clock. So I was getting ready to bring her in when she went down on the floor again and her eyes rolled back, and I said, "You stay there." And I called 911.
Like she's gonna jump off.
I did try to get up. I said, no, just put me in the car. We'll go to the hospital. I don't. I was really pissed, and still to this day, I'm really furious that you didn't pick me up and put me in the damn car.
But how do you feel about that?
I'm mad. That was ridiculous. You should have just put me in the car and brought me to the hospital.
Now, when you used your first oil, what did you make? Did you make the RSO or?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you infused it with cannabis,
Nope,
coconut oil or.
I used to propyl alcohol on a pound of marijuana.
Okay.
White Widow.
Yep.
Sure was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pat and Sue were they were the first ones that, we had many that reached to us for help, but they were the first ones that had their own marijuana, you know,
Yeah.
so it was
That's
pretty
awesome.
exciting on our end. All
We
had to
didn't
do
come
was,
like
you know,
this, we just came.
that
I want all of this that you got up here, Pete.
was
We were
pretty
looking
cool.
for a mentor, and we were looking to make some new friends. And
Yeah.
we
And
made some
here you
fun.
are, right?
Yes.
Well, and I think the coolest part about Pat and Sue's story is, you know, the love that's very obvious between you two. And for myself to see you guys work so hard to teach so many other people and pass it forward, as many people at this table do. So.
Yeah. Well, that was the only thing you asked of us. You said, if I teach you this, you need to teach others. Don't be all going and hiding in your closet saying, you know.
Goddamn stoners in the closet.
Way too often, way too often.
It does happen a lot.
Yeah.
So now, do you
They'll
grow
use
your
it.
own or?
We grow our own, and we teach everybody we can. We've
Yeah.
taught hundreds of people how to make oil. We belong to a club, and we teach
Where
everybody.
are you from?
We're from White Cloud area.
About an hour north of Grand
Do
Rapids.
you know where Big Rapids is?
No,
Famous-
I'm from Ohio.
Oh.
They're from an hour away from here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ohio means you don't know the map at all.
Well, let's see. We're
You say
like,
get the map out.
We're here.
Michigan
We're
people are
about
weird.
here.
Every time I ask somebody in Michigan where something's at, they're like, look at your hand. I'm like, that does mean
Best
no
thing about Michigan. Right here. I used to live right here. Now we're here. And today we're here.
And then you have the seat of the government.
Well, I hate to leave the table,
Yeah, we
but
gotta go.
we have
Do what you
to,
gotta
My
do. We're gonna
husband's
wrap
already
this up
calling
anyway.
me.
I think.
yep, we have to head back home, so.
Well,
I
good to
wanted
meet you finally.
Say bye, and it was very nice to meet all you guys.
Let us know how the Cinecolin
Yeah,
did.
you take care and good luck with
Very nice
everything.
meeting you. I'm glad you're
Likewise.
feeling better.
What's your name?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
It was
Yeah.
nice to meet you, and I'm so glad to see that you're doing better and helping other people. That's so awesome.
All right, Jen.
And Miss Corey.
Miss Lindsay.
Let's have a safe drive.
Everybody hugs. We're huggers.
We're all
Put
gone.
on camera. Camera.
Thank you for the awesome party.
I think it's a cannabis thing
My
too.
first half.
So we've all had a pretty fun-filled weekend, to say the least. I
Yes,
would
thank
like
you,
to
Pete,
say.
and company.
Like
Thank
to
you
thank
very much. That was great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Very.
I think, I don't think, I know, the purpose of this and the reason why I've gone to such great lengths to throw such an event and bring so many people from so far away is to put together in the same room a lot of the people that I've known for many years but never met face to face, and likewise, as you've all witnessed over the weekend, and the number of unions that have taken place is beyond beautiful. But more important than that, not just at this table, but over the weekend, we shared and learned with many cancer patients in particular that have beat cancer using cannabis oil. I don't think there's anybody at this table that needs any convincing about the power of cannabis oil as a medicine. We can say it as pretty matter-of-factly that we know that cannabis cures cancer, cannabis kills cancer, or any other way you want to put it. That doesn't mean that it works every time, all the time, or for everyone, or anything of the sort. But the truth is the truth, and regardless of how our medical system or our governments want to manipulate that, what we've experienced and seen for ourselves through firsthand experience proves them wrong, to be blunt. So I guess without trying to put any kind of a negative tone on this, I guess what I really am trying to bring out and want to emphasize a little bit is the fact that number one, we're aware. We know that doctors are killing us. We know that what they're doing is murder. We know that our governments are bought and paid for by our medical system. They're one and the same. a politician, a doctor, they're all part of the same club here. You know, we've got an elite group of people that are in charge of the world, and they're lying. And the things that they're lying about are causing people to die. And the blind faith that people put into these fancy fucks, to you know, for lack of a better term, is pretty disgusting. And in the age of information, ignorance is a pretty lame excuse. So the part of our mission here, and I think we do a pretty good job of it, but it's slow going, is to prove these people wrong, and to not necessarily prove them wrong, but to bring the awareness about that we know they're lying to us. They, you know,
They don't know they're lying. That's the problem. Half the time, they don't know. They're so ignorant.
and I guess you know, expand on that a little bit, Bob. You know, because we're not dealing with necessarily a medical problem anymore. We're dealing with a mental problem. You know.
Well, I always come back. You know, the only way.
You know where I'm going with it. So bring it.
The only way I can understand the situation is by this whole concept of flips and flips. How much cannabinoid activity do we have devoted as individuals to opening our mind up, the self-reflective aspect of what cannabis is about? Because it's about adaptation, and you adapt by understanding where you're at and where you might be able to go and how do you get there. It's all about this adaptive process, which is fundamental to life. And now we're stuck with the fact that some people are deficient in that adaptive process. Because it's always true. You're going to have, you know, deviations around the average. Some are going to be enhanced. You're going to have people who will have high cannabinoid activity and probably can't remember anything. And then you have people with low cannabinoid activity. And because of that low cannabinoid activity, they do not deal well with change. And because of that, they're the people who don't experiment with drugs in general and cannabis in particular. So their biology is keeping them from having the perceptions and the understandings that people who would be more experimental, more adventurous. You know, one of the things that you hear about marijuana in children, it's these children, the people who are using it, they exhibit risky behavior. Well, half the population is going to be more risky than the other half. And if you happen to be cannabinoid endowed and naturally optimistic, well, you know, if you think you're going to fail and you think you're going to succeed, who's more likely to try something? The people who are likely, who believe they're going to succeed. The stoner, optimist, cannabinoid endowed. And the rest are just trying to control things so that they can have control over the change that they don't want because it's stressful for them because they don't make enough pot. It's all very simple, you know. The reality is that the evolution of humanity has been led by the power of the endocannabinoid system to keep us alive. A simple, obvious example, you know, you eliminate that CB1 receptor in a mouse. So now you have a mouse who cannot get stoned at all, right? And what does he do? He sits there shivering in fear because, you know, if I got to move from here to there, that's a little too much change for me, you know? And they happen to die prematurely. And we're not talking about, you know, trivially premature. They like die 30% earlier than mice that can get high. And yet our government is trying to make us like those mice who die early, who are too afraid to do anything. Something's wrong here, right? And now we know, because what I'm telling you, I can document all of this with peer-reviewed science. It's not stuff that I make up. It's stuff that I learn by reading all the time. And we all know it's true. They don't, and they probably never will. So what we have to do is we have to spread among, look, let's say, you know, 25% of the people are cannabinoid endowed, 25% are totally cannabinoid deficient. Then you got the 50% in the middle. And education is what shifts which attitude they're going to have. And the more people seeing their friends and their families getting cured from horrible illnesses, getting suffering relieved, the more that is going to continue to increase. The cannabis awakening is happening, cannot be turned back, and we can just help guide it and accelerate it.
Amen. Amen. I like that. And I think, and I think it's important to recognize that momentum that we've got going, and certainly that I've seen build over the last few years that I've been involved as an activist. And, you know, it's painstaking. It's never fast enough. It's never enough, but it's undeniable as well. And I think it's there, and I feel that some of the folks at this table have really put their share of grease on those wheels, so to speak. You know, and from the bottom of my heart, I certainly thank each and every one of you for being here and being part of my life. Thank you.
I just want to say something real quick about the 50% that we need to educate and shift. That was the whole goal of this weekend, outside of bringing all of us together, is those people that came there for just the music, or came there, or the band members that had no idea about what we do and about what cannabis oil does. So there's a good handful of that 50% that learned a lot this weekend are going to go home and they're going to share with their friends, and they're going to come up with somebody that has cancer or is diagnosed, and we're going to get some phone calls, and we're going to guide some new people, and we're going to share that and spread that knowledge, and that's our goal. That's what Seed to Cure is all about, is spreading that knowledge and shifting that. So we're 75-25, and those blips will be out of here before we know it.
Now we're here for the people that call and say, I was just diagnosed with cancer, what can I do?
Exactly. And we want to teach and educate and share that.
Yeah, let people know there's at least hope.
Exactly.
There's an alternative, and there's hope in that alternative.
Exactly.
Well, we were talking about this outside, and I spoke to quite an ill woman last night, and who has the same type of cancer that I had. And her parting words to me, with tears and eyes, was, "You have given me hope." Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all about.
It is what it's about.
Absolutely.
You know,
and again, that's the optimism that comes from the cannabinoid activity.
Yeah.
Because you can deal with change.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to close this. You know, if there's one thing that stands out from my diagnosis and through the experiences I've shared with many of you and the other people I've come across, is the common thread of, number one, hopelessness in the beginning, or offered a treatment plan or a diagnosis or prognosis that just doesn't have hope as part of the equation, and to come out of that and to find anything, but most importantly, hope. Is really the first spark to even begin to heal, even begin the process of even trying to come back. I guess that's a wrap.
I want to say thank you to Pete.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you very, very much,
Thank you,
Peter.
Pete.
Excellent.
I've said it
all together.
I've said it separately to Corey and Nancy and George, Dr. Bob, that coming here this weekend, to me, I mean, I love the party, I love the music, the friendship, but to see these people, and Uncle Pete, Shiloh, we haven't seen him in a while. He's a silent learning person. He might have more knowledge than all of us. Learning all of us. But for you people to come as far as you did and share your information, your knowledge, experience was the most important thing.
You almost
Thank you all.
It's worth it.
Thank you for coming.
thank
That's
you.
what it's all about. It's about sharing, learning, moving. We're all in the same boat, you know? We're all fucking alive and we're all gonna die. And there's no way around it. So what do you do between here and there? You might as well enjoy yourself a little, you know?
Enjoy the
Have a
trip.
nice time. Help people is a significant part of that.
Yeah.
Because nothing feels as good as seeing somebody get better.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very
And that's I'm hooked. It's addictive.
I know.
You gotta make it illegal. Oh, it is illegal.
If you do your first patient, you can't stop.
No, you can't.
What shocks you is when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I feel so bad.
That's what I'm getting to a point now. I'm not shocked by it working anymore. I'm shocked when it didn't save someone. I'm shocked when it didn't change that cancer. So often that it does it, I become expected.
It's so sad when it doesn't, though. I lost my sister this year.
What I've seen too with even the ones that doesn't, it
It
betters
helps.
their life.
It does.
The pain
It helps.
is gone. The stress they're under.
Well, it
is
allows them
relief.
to enjoy their last
Yeah.
days with their family. They can have a meal with them. They get a good night's sleep instead of being doped up and stuck in a bed. There's a little bit of
Just
conscious
feeling horrible the whole
communication.
time.
Right.
Well,
It
without
just-
exception, and I mean this seriously, without exception, every single patient that I've had that hasn't made it, and all of them have had chemo radiation first,
without exception, the family has said to me afterwards, what a difference the oil made to their quality of life.
Right.
Every single
Even
one.
even though they don't make it,
Even- yeah.
that end of life process
Was
is better
so
than
different.
any hospice out there. It's
Yeah.
because it allows them to have that extra couple of days or weeks with their family member, as their family member. You
With
know,
a quality to their life.
Exactly. They're eating, they're laughing, they're telling you they love you. They're you
Yeah.
know they're able to communicate that instead of just
I've seen
One of
it
the
with
most
Alzheimer's patients.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they recognize their family again, and they're talking again.
Absolutely.
And remembering things that happened yesterday, remembering things that happened in their past, and you know, just sharing them with people again. When they couldn't
Lost and
remember
alone for-
where I am, who
Right.
am I,
I can't even
what am I
imagine.
doing here?
Yeah.
But see, again, the reason is because of this all-pervasive nature of how cannabis works. I mean, it creates new nerves in adult humans.
It does.
Right.
It creates new wiring, new connections. Well, isn't that something we want? Not to make that illegal?
exactly.
They're trying to make us stupid and sick by law. These are the people that are leading us?
That's a box I don't want to crawl in.